Thank you. I wish to acknowledge the unceded sovereignty of the lands in which we speak and gather today as a Mananjali woman on Yagara country to that of the Kulin Nations and across this continent. I feel very privileged to be invited by the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service to speak today to the matter of coercive control, or rather the matter of criminalising coercive control. I do so, keenly aware of the violence we encounter as blackfellas entering into this conversation, to insist on speaking of experience of this place or bringing our own knowledges to bear to offer solutions beyond that of incarceration. That we may think beyond the carceral response is to incite violence from those who can't imagine a solution that doesn't necessitate yet more of it. Inasmuch as victims of a coercive control experience a sense of powerlessness, of experiencing a form of violence that is not as visible as other forms, Black women, non-binary and trans femme have experienced this exact violence in entering into this conversation. The carceral feminists, whether they be journalists or academics, really need not lecture us on violence when they have been so reluctant to own up to their own. And they need to keep their hands off our trauma as their moral imperative to act, because if they truly cared about our experience, they would not be calling for more of our people to get locked up. I speak as someone who has experienced violence, not from my spouse, but from the state, at the hands of police on multiple occasions, and from carceral feminists the moment I entered into this conversation, at the request of Sisters Inside in my capacity as Director of the Institute for Collaborative Race Research and as a scholar. I also speak from my experiences of having supported Indigenous family members who've experienced family violence yet have been denied safety, care and protection from health and social services, lawyers, police and the courts. Now, I don't claim their experience of violence, but in bearing witness to how it was visited upon them in the process by which they sought care and protection, I cannot be silent about that either. And amidst this talk of women's summits last year, I dared respond to a request from ABC local radio to speak of the limitations of the Queensland Premier's calls for a National Women's Summit. I pointed out, much like our sisters have done long before us, Professor Larissa Brent, Professor Jackie Huggins and Professor Ali Morton-Robinson, that we are not a subset of the category of women with shared realities and aspirations for all our emancipation. Our experiences and thus our solutions are uniquely different. I pointed out these differences where she had said that the big issues were the pay gap, superannuation, childcare and workplace sexual harassment. And in doing so, evoked an imagining of who she considers belongs to the category of woman. I highlighted that while they're trying to get women into work and on boards, we are trying to keep women out of jail. While they speak of how expensive childcare is, we speak of the trauma of child removal and the violence that comes with our kids being in supposed care. While they speak of superannuation, we talk about a life expectancy that falls short of retirement age. And when they speak of sex discrimination, our calls to attend to race discrimination falls on deaf ears. Now, this little 7-minute interview would result not in a reply from the Premier, who denied to comment, but a summonsing of her public servants to effectively dismiss my concerns. Attached to that interview is a 1,600-word response that spoke not of the limitations of the Premier's feminist imagination, but of our gap and our disadvantaged, followed by a list of services they fund, the division of which is largely apportioned to itself, via a state-run health service, the same service that failed my family when they were seeking care. I was reminded of the Indigenous expertise of the just one Indigenous woman represented on their Women's Task Force. And I was told that the Flawed Women's Summit would be, and I quote, a great way for people like me to voice their concerns and give their suggestions to help affect generational change, particularly for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women. It was very much a get in line, wait your turn, know your place kind of feminism that Black women know too well in this place. And this is the kind of gaslighting so inherent in the violence of coercive control conversations. In speaking out, even the processes that they design and claim include us, we are told that we don't care about other women or we should at least be grateful for the good things they do for us. It was during this time that I was called to meet with the chair of the Queensland Women's Safety Task Force, not with my co-authors on the submission we made, but just me. The conversation was met with, we appreciate your submission, but we've talked to other Indigenous women who want to feel safe, as though the safety of Indigenous women is not central to our concerns. But casting Black women as uncaring and unloving is the same move that the police make in supposedly misidentifying us as perpetrators when it comes to family violence. They are all part of the same machinery of racial violence in the colony. What fucking hope is there? It does not matter the evidence base we bring, the palatability of our delivery, or the generosity we afford those who are least deserving. And it's not like we can ever leave this violent relationship. Our only option is to build regardless and refuse to appeal to the real perpetrators in all of this. We must find ways to do the work we know is necessary to protecting our people, men, women, and children. To speak of family violence in an Indigenous context means to imagine the humanity of us all, as well as all forms of violence. And that's the one thing I've grown the most strength from in amongst all of this, is the leadership culturally, politically, and intellectually of Black women, non-binary and trans mob who still lead with love every day in this place while struggling to live. And it's for this reason I wish to commend the work of the Victorian Aboriginal Legal Service for creating the space for this conversation and amplifying the voices of some of our thought leaders in this place. Nayuka Gorry, Dr. Amanda Porter, and Dr. Crystal McKinnon. You will note that what they offer is not just an appeal to the expansion of the category of woman or what constitutes violence, but is showing what it is to be fully human, both in our understanding of the problem and the solutions that are available to us. Thank you.